This message is only for the person who was meant to hear it today. If you feel something inside you telling you not to leave just yet, then stay for a few moments, because what you are about to hear may challenge the way you have been looking at your life. There are moments when people ignore an important truth because it arrives quietly instead of dramatically. They expect answers to come with thunder, yet sometimes the most important realization begins with a whisper. You have spent so much time waiting for everything around you to change that you almost forgot to ask whether something inside you has been asking for your attention all along. Listen carefully. There is a reason you have been feeling restless. There is a reason you have been questioning things that never used to bother you. There is a reason your heart has refused to settle for the explanations that once satisfied you. This is not because you are weak. It is not because you are failing. Sometimes the greatest turning points begin when a person can no longer pretend that everything is fine. You have carried responsibilities that few people noticed. You have smiled when your heart was tired. You have encouraged others while secretly wondering who would encourage you. You have shown strength that people admired without realizing how much it cost you to keep standing. And somewhere along the way, you became so focused on surviving that you stopped expecting life to become different. That is where many people stay. Not because they have no opportunity, but because they become comfortable with disappointment. They expect less. They dream less. They hope less. They begin convincing themselves that tomorrow will simply look like yesterday. But what if that belief has been holding you back more than any obstacle in front of you? Think about the patterns that keep repeating. The conversations that leave you drained. The situations you keep accepting even though they never bring peace. The promises you keep making to yourself that somehow disappear when another day begins. None of these things happened overnight. They were built one small decision at a time. One postponed conversation. One ignored warning. One excuse. One delay. One moment of saying, "I'll deal with it later." Until later became another week. Another month. Another year. How many opportunities have disappeared simply because they arrived looking ordinary? How many relationships changed because something important remained unsaid? How many dreams faded because fear sounded more reasonable than courage? These are difficult questions. But they matter. Because the future is not created by dramatic moments alone. It is shaped by the choices that nobody else notices. You already know there are things you've been avoiding. You already know there are habits that no longer belong in the life you want. You already know there are conversations you've postponed because they felt uncomfortable. Deep down, you already know. The hardest part has never been recognizing the truth. The hardest part has been deciding what to do after recognizing it. There comes a point where waiting stops being wisdom. It becomes avoidance. There comes a point where caution stops protecting you. It starts imprisoning you. There comes a point where comfort quietly becomes the greatest obstacle to growth. Maybe that point is now. Have you noticed how quickly time passes? A week becomes a month. A month becomes a year. Then suddenly you look back wondering where the time went. You remember the version of yourself who believed change was just around the corner. You remember the goals you promised you would pursue. You remember the courage you thought you would have. And then reality asks a difficult question. What happened? Most people never lose their dreams in one dramatic moment. They lose them through small compromises. Through repeated hesitation. Through waiting for perfect timing that never arrives. Perfection is a moving target. If you keep chasing it, you may never begin. You have probably spent more energy worrying about failure than actually moving forward. Yet failure often teaches more than comfort ever could. Growth is rarely convenient. Transformation is rarely comfortable. The people you admire did not become stronger because life was easy. They became stronger because they kept moving despite uncertainty. Perhaps you have been measuring your progress by visible results while ignoring invisible growth. Maybe you have become more patient, more resilient, more compassionate, more aware, more honest with yourself. Those things matter. Sometimes they matter even more than immediate success. Because character determines what success becomes once it arrives. Think about the people around you. Who consistently brings peace into your life? Who consistently brings confusion? Who encourages your growth? Who quietly discourages it? Not every influence is obvious. Some influences are subtle. Some people never directly tell you to give up. They simply make you question yourself every time you try. Some environments slowly convince you to shrink. Not through conflict. Through constant limitation. The words you hear repeatedly become the thoughts you believe repeatedly. That is why protecting your mind matters. Not because the world is filled with enemies, but because your attention shapes your direction. Whatever receives your focus eventually receives your energy. Whatever receives your energy eventually grows. If fear receives it, fear grows. If bitterness receives it, bitterness grows. If gratitude receives it, gratitude grows. You cannot plant one seed while expecting another harvest. Life rarely works that way. Maybe today is less about discovering something new. Maybe it is about finally accepting something you have known for a long time. There is power in honesty. Honesty says, I've been afraid. I've been procrastinating. I've been settling. I've been pretending. That honesty is not weakness. It is often the beginning of freedom. Nobody changes what they refuse to acknowledge. The truth can feel uncomfortable. But avoiding it never makes it disappear. It only delays the moment you eventually face it. And delayed truth usually becomes heavier. Imagine carrying a backpack. At first one stone feels manageable. Then another. Then another. Eventually you forget what it felt like to walk without extra weight. That is how emotional burdens often work. You adapt. You survive. You convince yourself that exhaustion is normal. Until one day you realize you have been carrying things that were never yours to keep. Some burdens belong to yesterday. Some regrets belong to lessons already learned. Some fears belong to stories that never came true. You do not honor the past by staying trapped inside it. You honor it by learning from it. Your future deserves the version of you who has learned, not the version still imprisoned by old mistakes. Ask yourself something. If fear disappeared for one day, what would you finally do? Who would you call? What would you begin? What would you stop tolerating? What dream would you revisit? Your answer reveals more than you realize. Fear often disguises itself as practicality. It sounds responsible. It sounds careful. It sounds reasonable. Yet underneath those explanations is sometimes one simple reality. You are afraid of disappointment. That fear is understandable. But if disappointment becomes your greatest teacher, hope quietly leaves the classroom. Hope needs room to breathe. Hope grows when action follows belief. Not every step has to be enormous. Sometimes courage looks like sending one message, making one appointment, writing one page, taking one walk, speaking one honest sentence. Tiny actions repeated consistently reshape entire lives. People often underestimate consistency because it feels ordinary. Yet ordinary decisions create extraordinary outcomes over time. Think about a tree. It does not become tall overnight. Nobody notices its growth from one day to the next. Yet years later everyone notices its strength. Real growth often happens like that. Quietly. Patiently. Steadily. The world celebrates instant success. Life usually rewards persistent effort. There may be people who underestimated you. People who only noticed your mistakes. People who judged your delays without understanding your circumstances. You cannot control their opinions. You can control your response. Your identity cannot depend on the loudest voice in the room. It must be grounded in something deeper than public approval. Approval changes quickly. Character lasts longer. You have survived things that once seemed impossible. Remember that. There were days you thought you would never recover. Yet here you are. There were moments you believed the pain would never end. Yet time continued. Healing continued. Life continued. That does not erase what happened. But it reminds you that endurance has already become part of your story. Sometimes we forget our own resilience because we focus only on our remaining struggles. Look at your journey honestly. You are not the same person you were years ago. You have changed. Perhaps not as quickly as you hoped. But change has happened. Now imagine where consistent intentional choices could take you over the next year. Not miracles. Not shortcuts. Daily faithfulness. Daily honesty. Daily courage. Imagine that version of yourself. More peaceful. More disciplined. More present. More confident. That future is built one decision at a time. No single morning changes everything. Many mornings change everything together. That is how transformation works. You may be waiting for motivation. Motivation is helpful, but it is unreliable. Purpose continues after motivation disappears. Discipline continues after excitement fades. Values continue after emotions change. Build your life on what remains steady, not on what changes every hour. Some people spend years searching for certainty before they act. Yet certainty often arrives after movement begins. You learn by walking. You understand by experiencing. You grow by practicing. Waiting until you know everything usually means waiting forever. There will always be unanswered questions. That has always been true. Still, people build meaningful lives despite uncertainty. Not because they have every answer. Because they choose to keep moving. You may have been telling yourself a story. A story that says, "It's too late. I'm too far behind. I've missed my chance." But look around. History is filled with people who started later than expected. Who recovered after failure. Who rebuilt after loss. Who discovered purpose after years of confusion. Your timeline does not have to match someone else's. Comparison steals more joy than almost anything else. You compare your beginning to another person's middle. Your private struggles to someone else's public highlights. That comparison was never fair. Focus on your path. Your next step. Your next decision. Your next conversation. That is enough for today. Do not underestimate the importance of today. Tomorrow is shaped by what happens here. Not by what you wish had happened yesterday. There is something powerful about deciding that the next chapter will not be written by old habits. That decision changes direction. Direction changes destination. You may not notice the difference immediately. But over time, different direction creates a different life. Pay attention to what repeatedly steals your peace. Not every challenge should be avoided. Growth often feels uncomfortable. But there is a difference between healthy challenge and unhealthy patterns. Learn that difference. Protect your energy from constant negativity. Protect your attention from endless distraction. Protect your time from habits that quietly consume it. Life is built from whatever repeatedly receives your hours. Hours become days. Days become years. Years become your story. One day someone may ask how your life changed. The answer probably will not be one dramatic event. It will be hundreds of quiet choices nobody applauded. Choosing honesty. Choosing forgiveness. Choosing discipline. Choosing patience. Choosing hope. Choosing to begin again after failure. Again. And again. And again. Those choices matter. Perhaps this moment is not asking you to become a completely different person overnight. Perhaps it is asking you to become a slightly more courageous version of yourself today. That is enough. Progress compounds. Kindness compounds. Wisdom compounds. Integrity compounds. Everything repeated becomes powerful. You have more influence than you realize. The way you speak affects people. The way you listen affects people. The way you respond under pressure affects people. Your life reaches further than you can currently see. That is why your choices matter. Not because perfection is expected. Because influence is inevitable. Someone is learning from how you live. Whether you realize it or not. If your heart has been waiting for permission to begin again, consider this your reminder that every day offers another opportunity to choose differently. The past may explain you. It does not have to define you. The future remains unwritten. And that is good news. Because unwritten chapters can become beautiful ones. Do not allow yesterday's disappointment to become tomorrow's expectation. Hope is not pretending everything is easy. Hope is believing meaningful change remains possible. As long as you are willing to keep growing, your story is still moving forward. Do not ignore what your conscience has been quietly repeating. Do not silence the voice calling you toward honesty. Do not postpone the conversation that could bring healing. Do not delay the habit that could improve your future. Do not underestimate one intentional decision. Sometimes one decision becomes the doorway to an entirely different life. Today may look ordinary. But ordinary days often become extraordinary memories when we realize they were the beginning of something new. Remember this. Life rarely changes all at once. It changes one faithful step at a time. One courageous choice at a time. One honest moment at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One decision to keep going at a time. You have come farther than you think. You have learned more than you realize. You have survived more than you remember. And there is still room to grow. The next chapter has not been written yet. Write it wisely. Write it with courage. Write it with integrity. Write it with hope. Because the choices you make today will quietly become the story you tell tomorrow. The story of your life is not determined only by the moments that changed you. It is also shaped by the moments that tried to stop you. Think about every time you almost gave up. Every time you convinced yourself that trying again was pointless. Every time you believed that nothing would ever be different. You are still here. That alone tells a story. Many people believe that change begins when circumstances improve. But often, change begins when your perspective changes before your circumstances ever do. There is a quiet strength that grows inside a person who refuses to let disappointment become their identity. You cannot always choose what happens to you. But you can choose what becomes permanent inside you. Do not allow temporary pain to become permanent bitterness. Do not allow one betrayal to convince you that trust no longer exists. Do not allow one failure to define your entire future. Life is always trying to teach something. The question is whether you are listening. Sometimes the lesson comes through success. Sometimes it comes through loss. Sometimes it comes through waiting. Waiting is difficult because it forces you to confront yourself. It reveals what you truly believe. It exposes where your confidence has been placed. It teaches patience in a world that rewards speed. But patience should never become passivity. There is a difference. Patience keeps preparing while waiting. Passivity stops preparing altogether. Ask yourself honestly. Have you been preparing for the future you want? Or have you simply been hoping it arrives on its own? Hope is powerful. But hope without action eventually becomes frustration. Every meaningful dream asks something from you. It asks for consistency. It asks for sacrifice. It asks for discipline when excitement fades. It asks for faith when visible progress seems slow. That is why so many people quit. Not because they lacked potential. Because they underestimated persistence. The strongest people are not always the most talented. They are often the ones who kept showing up long after everyone else stopped. Imagine planting seeds. You would never expect fruit the next morning. Yet many people expect instant results in every area of life. Growth has seasons. Learning has seasons. Healing has seasons. Your responsibility is not to rush the process. Your responsibility is to remain faithful during it. Look carefully at what has your attention every day. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Whatever constantly captures it is shaping your future. If every morning begins with fear, fear grows. If every evening ends with gratitude, gratitude grows. If every decision is guided by comparison, peace disappears. Guard your attention carefully. Because what you repeatedly focus on eventually becomes your reality. There are voices that will always tell you that you are too late. Too old. Too inexperienced. Too broken. Too ordinary. But those voices rarely ask one important question. What if they are wrong? History has been changed by ordinary people who decided not to believe limiting stories about themselves. They were not fearless. They simply refused to let fear become the final decision maker. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be critics. There will always be setbacks. None of those things automatically determine your destination. Your response does. Every challenge asks a question. Will this stop you? Or will this shape you? The answer is written through your actions. Not your intentions. Intentions matter. But action transforms. Think about the person you want to become. Not the version that impresses strangers. The version that allows you to sleep peacefully at night. The version that tells the truth even when it costs something. The version that keeps promises. The version that treats people with kindness without expecting applause. That version is built quietly. One decision at a time. No audience. No recognition. Just integrity. Integrity is choosing the right path when nobody is watching. And over time, integrity creates confidence. Because you stop wondering who you are. You already know. There is incredible freedom in becoming the same person in public and in private. You no longer need to wear masks. You no longer need to perform. You simply live honestly. That kind of peace cannot be purchased. It must be practiced. Perhaps the greatest obstacle in front of you is not a lack of opportunity. Perhaps it is the belief that you need permission to begin. You do not need to wait until everything is perfect. You do not need to wait until every fear disappears. You do not need to wait until everyone approves. Some journeys begin the moment you decide that enough waiting has already happened. Time moves whether you act or not. 1 year from now, you will wish you had started today. The question is not whether time will pass. The question is who you will become while it does. There is still more life ahead of you than you can currently imagine. More lessons. More relationships. More opportunities. More moments that will completely surprise you. Do not close the door on possibilities simply because the last chapter was difficult. Every chapter deserves to be written on its own. Do not force tomorrow to carry yesterday's ending. Leave room for something better. Leave room for unexpected joy. Leave room for growth that cannot yet be measured. And if this message found you at the exact moment when you needed a reminder not to give up, remember this: the smallest decision you make today may become the turning point you only recognize years from now. Your future is not asking for perfection. It is asking for your next faithful step. Take it. Then take another. And another. Because lives are rarely transformed in a single moment. They are transformed by people who refuse to stop moving forward when progress feels invisible. Keep going. Your next chapter is still being written.